right, welcome to the Unity Guides expert interview series. My name is Clayton Stenson, and I'll be your host today. This series is brought to you by the Unity Guide, where we help develop Unity within companies running on EOS. We do this through fractional integrator services and coaching for the visionary and integrator, as well as their leadership teams. So recently, I've been meeting so many amazing people, and I thought there has to be a way I could take a piece of these conversations that I have week in and week out and share them with the business community to add value. And one of those amazing people that I know is Kenny Lange. Kenny is a system and soul coach in Texas. The topic he's passionate about and we're going to discuss today is the personal roadmap. But before we get into that, and welcome Kenny, first of all. But before we get into that, I want to ask you two questions, Kenny. I know a lot of our viewers are familiar with EOS and maybe not so familiar with System and Soul. So first, what is System and Soul in your own words?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Clayton. I was excited about this, got jazzed up. And to your question about what is System and Soul, it's a holistic framework that really blends the systems, the processes, all those classic business principles that you need to scale, along with an emphasis on people, leadership, culture, and values. It blends those things together so that you can scale without sacrificing the people that you need to get you there, or maybe help get you to where you are today. So it takes out the either or and turns building a great and healthy organization into a both and situation.
That's awesome. And just curious, how did you discover System and Soul and what led you to become a coach?
Yeah, I discovered it at the base of the Alps. And no, I'm just kidding. I'd like to believe I wandered off and discovered it. I can't take credit. The way I discovered it was that I was getting some coaching, and I'm a firm believer that coaches should have coaching. But even before that, I was working as an integrator. We were at an agency I had sold my first company to. So I was digital agency owner, nerd, and we were running on EOS, trying to improve some things. And I met Benj Miller, who's one of the co-founders, and started getting some coaching from him. He was really helpful, had a lot of insight. He started Syrup Marketing, which is an agency that's still going nearly 20 years now, which is phenomenal and blows past most agency timelines in terms of existence. And I believe it was in 2021 that at the beginning of the year, he told me, he's like, "Hey, I got something that myself and my business partner, and that's Chris White. A lot of people know him in the EOS community. He's one of the first 25, 30 implementers in the world." And he said, "We've been working on something because of our clients asking us for these other culture, people-centered tools and exercises, and we feel like instead of making a Franken system where it just feels bolted on, we wanted to create something that really held it all together." And he showed that System and Soul to me, and it resonated with me, which I may be getting ahead of like your next question a bit, but it was so appealing because it felt like it brought together the two halves of myself that felt sort of at war with one another. And it was refreshing. And we ended up implementing it at the agency I was at. Benj got us started, and it was really fuel on the fire. And so between EOS, System and Soul, and how we discovered that, we grew, nearly doubled revenue in 2 years while I was there, and really saw a benefit to the people and the systems. And so I was really taken in with it.
That's awesome. Love it. Love it. So today's topic is the personal roadmap, which I think I know what it is, but maybe for the benefit of the audience, can you tell us what is a personal roadmap first of all, and then why did you want to talk about this today?
Yeah. The personal roadmap is that individual version of what we in S2 call just a company's roadmap. I'll do a little translation here. I am bilingual. I speak EOSEs, But for those of you in the orange community, that your VTO equals a roadmap in the S2 world. So whereas you have 2 pages on the VTO, we have a single page roadmaps or 1 page roadmap. So if you see that in some of our content, that's what that means. And it's great. But one of the things that we had seen across multiple frameworks, not just us, not just EOS, but others, is there wasn't a great way to drive that down to the individual leader. And how could we build that? I know like there's a family VTO. Oh, there's my bubbles. That's the first one. I was wondering when it was going to come in. Um, but I know uh, I was always curious. I had implementer friends that told me like, hey, there's this family VTO because it makes a lot of sense. It's just a way to, what is it? Organize and harness human energy. And
Yep.
I have a large family of 5 kids. There's a lot of humans and a lot of energy, right?
Yep.
I mean, I know with all your boys, you got a lot going
Yep.
on too.
Yep.
And it was always something for me. And I know just before we hit record, you and I were talking about this is that we would take that individual approach from the integrator position. While there's a lot of functionality, and in our language for system and soul, it's operator, is yes, you're taking on a disproportionate amount of rocks or objectives and tasks and special projects, but it's largely winning through people. That's what it's a people position.
Yeah.
And so if you can't figure that out, then you are not going to be effective at your role and not effective for the organization. And and so when I stepped in and I started meeting one on one with people, developing them one on ones, quarterly conversations. We call those, healthy fit conversations in our language. There's sort of like some standard questions, and you could check up on core values and GWC or fit for us, and that's great, but it doesn't really take it far enough, and it doesn't give you something that that person then sees like, oh, this is really what I'm gifted at, right? Like all these tools are meant to provide clarity, just like you were talking about at the intro, right? Like Unity Guide, like you're bringing clarity to these organizations, you're bringing clarity and leadership, and a lot of times just getting the clarity is what can bring some unity, right?
Yep.
So the personal roadmap does for the individual what a VTO or a 1 page roadmap does for the organization. And so if you've been a part of that team, that process, you understand how much good comes from that revelation that or that information being revealed and articulated in such a way that you can go, oh, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm for. This is where my focus belongs. These are my priorities. This is my focus. And so when you do that, it unlocks that next level for that person, not just in terms of productivity, right? Like if that's all it was, a productivity tool, I would not be that excited to talk to you about it.
Right.
But really, and you can see on my shirt, it is one of our System and Soul shirts, but it says create dignity for all. It gives dignity to the person by saying you are uniquely created, designed, like skilled. Let's put language to that. You have goals and dreams and aspirations. And oh, by the way, it may include not working here forever, and that's okay. If you're a leader and you're listening and you're not okay with that, get okay with that. Otherwise, you're going to lose your best people. But it gives you a tool that now me as a leader, I can go in and say, okay, what's your superpower? Where's your unique ability? What's your hedgehog, your personal hedgehog? What's your craft? What are you really skilled at? And I can walk through those things as you want. But I found so many leaders that are well intentioned about individual personal leadership development. Most of what they have is good intention, and they don't clearly see the steps to develop that direct report to help them become everything they're meant to be and possibly even their replacement.
Mm, I love that. Love that last statement there. Possibly their replacement. Um, I love this because I think the biggest room for improvement is in a company is engagement and development and
Mhm.
empowerment other people. But how do you do that, right? Like, when I think about the
Mhm.
VTO or the roadmap, right? Like that gets super clear for the leadership team, right? But sometimes it doesn't filter down to the rest of the team. And then how do you also how do you tie in each person's individual, like you call it, unique ability or whatever you want to call it, into
Mhm.
that, into the bigger picture. Um, awesome. So how do you do this? Because this isn't something that I don't think this is something that EOS talks about, or I've never heard about it. So I'm just curious, like, how do you develop a roadmap? Where do you start?
Yeah. One of the things that you said just sparked something for me
Mhm.
to remember. And we have this like in our slide decks. Benj talks about this a lot. Is we have to create a vision where everybody can find their role in the story.
Mhm.
And you can craft the organizational narrative, but when we drive it down, now suddenly I know how I can participate. And
Mhm.
so the first place that we do that is in a personal, you can call it a personal mission statement. I know the 80s are long gone. They're still amazing. I'm still flying into the danger zone, but we have a statement and it says, I bring my blank in order to blank. And by the way, however you want to deliver this, Clayton, I know I'm throwing something at you that we didn't discuss previously, but I have some resources, some tools that if people want to walk through this for themselves or lead their people through it, I'll make that available along with an example personal roadmap and a blank one, so you can just fill that out and play with it.
Yep.
But that I bring my what is your superpower? Could be a trait, could be a skill set. Um, and so like on one of the example personal roadmaps that I show my clients, it says, I bring my ability to fill in the gaps in order to move the mission forward or the company forward. So if you think about you have some sort of unique skill or trait that you probably were blind to it. It's one of those things that it just naturally developed. And if you turned around, if you took a long enough to reflect, you would go, oh my goodness, like there's this thread, there's this pattern. You know, for me, and in reflecting on this, I've ended up next to senior leaders most of my life without holding a position. And it's in it now that I'm a coach, it makes a whole lot of sense. Like that's literally what I'm doing. And now at least I get paid to do it. I tell people I get paid to do what I used to get in trouble in school for, which is, just talking, conversing. But you think about what's the outcome of that? So what effect does that have on the people, the processes, the community at large? Like what the different stakeholders that your position is accountable to or impacts? So think of through those things. The second part is a focus. So if that's mission, where do I focus? And we utilize the hedgehog concept from Jim Collins' Good to Great book. We use that in the corporate or company level roadmap, but we do that with the personal roadmap as well. But we change it, we tweak it just a little bit, and we talk about like what is my craft. So instead of what could I be best at, what could we be best in the world at, it's what is my craft, and that may be something you really spent time to hone and develop. So for me, I feel like my craft, the thing I want to continuously improve upon, is facilitation. So if well, I can say I'm a coach and everything. Really, I'm a professional facilitator.
Mhm.
I've facilitated, sessions with senior leadership teams. I've facilitated dialogue between a visionary and an operator, similar to what you're doing. It's like professional marriage counseling. Um, but I've even facilitated a conversation you and I had. We walked through some of this when I was sharing about the roadmap. You were asking questions. I was like, well, let's do a few exercises, and I can facilitate there. So that's a craft. So that may be listening, could be sales, it could be I'm really good at whatever it may be. But it's usually something you can keep working on. Passion. What are you deeply passionate about? It's got to stir emotions. It's probably the thing that draws you in. Um, Without anyone having to ask you to do it.
Hmm.
and then your unique genius. The easiest way to start with this is think through assessments. Most times as a leader, you either are drawn to assessments because you like figuring those things out and forcing them upon your people, out of care and compassion and love, I'm sure. But and certainly never to weaponize them. I'll leave that for a different podcast. But I'll do that on mine. I'll just do a solo episode on weaponizing assessments. But the things like the working genius, things like DISC, Enneagram, any of those can be really helpful to. They don't. None of them tell the whole story, but they all start to give you a little bit of the outline and shape of what is really unique about this person and the way they think and approach problem solving and people relationship dynamics. Somewhere in those three, the craft, the passion, and the genius, that creates an area of focus. What sort of projects should you be stepping into? Now, if you're the leader and you're thinking about that for your people, that should tell you, if I find work opportunities, task opportunities, project opportunities, team opportunities that hit this person in all three, because come on, who doesn't love a good Venn diagram? We can get the most out of this person. We don't have to motivate them that much, and they're going to do it way better than
Hmm.
us or someone else that we're just like, well, technically it's their department.
Right.
Right? Now we're managing at the people level and we're doing it, which by the way, it takes a lot of energy. I'm not saying that this is easy. I'm talking
Hmm.
quickly about it, but it's not easy, but the results are so disproportionately good that it's
Hmm.
worth the
Yeah.
effort and investment. Now,
Yeah.
those are like the top two things. There's some more, but I've said a lot, and I don't know if you have some thoughts there or you want to pick at some of that,
Yeah.
because those
No.
those two are really interesting
Yeah. I love it.
for
I,
me.
I I think back to the first time I became integrator. And when I was promoted, the visionary said, "Clayton, I suck at this stuff, and I know you'd be good at it. So please take it off of my plate." And that was the second time he did that to me. He said, the first time was, "Can you be my estimator? I hate spreadsheets and I don't want to learn them." Right. And I think you'd really like him, by the way. But it's a beautiful thing when you have people around you that have different unique abilities than you. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember I stepped into that role, and the company flourished with me in that role, and I loved it. Like, it just felt like the perfect spot for me. And so, and then another example though is right after that, I recognized we had a real gap in the data entry kind of administrative side. So
Mm.
I hired somebody for that role, and she was awesome. Like, we were blessed. She did so well. And I remember this was a construction company. I took her to a job site, and I said, because she'd never been to a job site, she didn't know construction at all. So I said, come to the job site. We'll walk around and you get a little bit of familiarity. And on the way there, I asked her, like, "So how are you liking your job?" She said, "I love it." "What do you love about it?" "Data entry," she said. And I was like, "You are weird." That's what I said. "You are weird that you love data entry." But that was her unique ability. Like, she loved that stuff, right? And she
Yeah.
was great at figuring out, like, we implemented a new software, and she was loving that. She was loving figuring that out and being the person to answer
Hmm.
questions. And so the reason I say that is to explain all that is, um, there's so much opportunity there, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
can
Yeah.
find people's unique ability, and it's not only beneficial for the company, it's incredibly beneficial for them, because they get to do the thing
Mm-hmm.
that they're built for and that they love, right?
Absolutely.
And so, I love the idea of a personal roadmap as a way, to help people to discover where they fit best so they can
Mm-hmm.
flourish, right? And
Yeah.
you know the reality is, not everybody fits, and sometimes they might not want to engage in that, and maybe they don't need to be on the team or whatever. But when you have the right people and you find those unique abilities and you can put people in positions where they can use them, it's great, and it's incredible
Mm-hmm.
what can happen.
Absolutely.
um
Um, the some of a couple of the other pieces on there, some of this goes a little more quickly, but we have a section on there in the middle for growth, personal, professional, and then current focus. So we just ask people to think through 1 to 3 years out. What are 5 to 7 things that they would love to be true about their life, their career achievements, things like that. And then the last one is a current focus. So this is where their quarterly objectives. So EOS, that would be like their rocks automatically. Those need to be focused on. And then we add any personal things that would help them take steps there. And part of your job as a leader is to go, okay, well, how can I support you in moving forward? Like, obviously, I'm supporting you on whatever your rock, your objective is, but I want to help you with your personal focus. If you have anything there, if I'm able to, right? There's no guarantee, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes half the benefit is just asking.
Mm.
And then we have a lower part where we talk about what's the healthy fit, how well have they exhibited the core values on a scale of 1 to 4, 4 almost always, 1 almost never, and we compare the leader and the direct report. Like if somebody says, "I am rocking it, man," like I am killing it, and then that leader comes back and is like, "Not so much," right? Like it's not, "Hey, gotcha," like you're fired. It's let's talk about why there's a disparity between your perception of yourself and my perception of you. And
Right.
then fit being fuel, impact, and timeliness. We look at KPIs. So every seat in our model, when we design our org chart, every seat has KPIs associated with it. So all of those are brought in, and we have software, the S2 Sync app, that will automatically pull this into the personal roadmap. So you can do this manually, but the software obviously makes things beautiful. Your data lady would love it. But we look at the trend, are you, and for me, KPIs are just, are we doing the right things right? And that
Mm-hmm.
tells us if we need to have a conversation. And one of the final things we have is something called the 6 dimensions of compensation, and that's one of the
Right.
newest pieces. And that's being co-developed with System and Soul and one of our coaches, Jonathan King. And financial is in there; it's at the bottom because that's a given. But we look at emotional, social, psychological, spiritual, and physical. So emotional compensation, I enjoy my work. Social, I enjoy the people I work with. Psychological, learning, growing, stretching. Is it challenging? Spiritual, is there meaning and purpose, or am I just like showing up and punching the
Mm-hmm.
clock? And then physical compensation. That doesn't mean like you have elbow room and you're not like compressed in a cubicle, but do I have the margin for the things I want to do in my life? Right? Is it, I know hybrid work, return to office versus fully remote versus whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's how many articles have been written about that? That is a
That's a huge issue.
part,
Yeah.
that configuration and that requirement is a piece of the compensation. And obviously, financial, you want to be appropriately compensated for your work, but there's study after study that show that people who have a great work environment and work life integration and things like that, and have a work best friend, they're okay with a little less money, not use that as a manipulation to squeeze people, but they're okay with that. And then your turnover goes way down. And if you're a leader who doesn't understand the cost of high turnover, you need to go get an education because it's costing you a small fortune, and it is drastically reducing the speed with which you are going to be able to scale, grow, achieve, and compete in a marketplace that is increasingly more competitive. I don't care what area you're in, it's
Mm-hmm.
noisy out there. And you need great people to help you win in the marketplace. Or if you're a nonprofit, like some of my clients are, you are looking to compete against whatever ill is out there that
Yeah.
you're trying to
Yeah.
wage war against.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
good.
that's the whole roadmap, and then that gets reviewed every quarter in what we call our healthy fit coaching conversations.
Yeah. What comes to mind for me, and you've probably heard this statement before, but people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And
Mm-hmm.
like
100%.
doing a personal roadmap, like this type of mentorship and investment
Mm-hmm.
into people, um, it's a lot of work, right? Like I I did. We the first time I was integrated, we had 20 staff, and I did quarterly conversations with everybody, and did these kinds of conversations. I didn't have a structure like this, but it was
Mm-hmm.
like, where do you want to be in 5 years? How's your family? Like, just this type of stuff. To getting to know them and investing in them. Um, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
when people truly know that you care and you want to help them to be successful, um, they'll work hard for you, right? And
Yeah.
it's a team, truly a team. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just you cracking the whip trying to get them to do stuff. It's how do we work together to make your life better, your career continue to improve, and
Mm-hmm.
and consequently also the business to do better, right? So I love it. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's great. Thank you, Kenny. Any,
Yeah, absolutely. It
any,
it
any
reminds me of the Zig Ziglar quote, that
hmm,
if you spend all your time helping other people get what they want, you won't have to worry about what you want.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love that. Excellent. Any last thoughts to add before we kind of move to conclude?
No, I just would encourage people wherever Clayton's going to make this available, or we'll figure out the link situation, to have these assets there. And if you're trying it out and you're getting, hitting some issues, I'm happy to help and respond however I can.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, Kenny. And I'm sure this is going to add value to some people that are listening. So if someone wanted to reach out and learn more, how would they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, you can email me. It's kenny@kennylang.com. I'm also on LinkedIn fairly regularly. I'm probably out there liking and celebrating Clayton's posts. Like that's just what I love to
Better
do.
be.
It's part of my focus and my passion really on my personal roadmap is celebrating Clayton's LinkedIn posts. But I'm there, so message me, reach out, and or email me, and I'd be happy to help.
Awesome.
I also you can check out like I have podcasts on YouTube and things like that, which Clayton's gonna be on.
Yeah, yeah.
So keep an eye out for
What's
that
it what's
episode. I'm
it
sure
what's it
it's gonna
called?
be a banger.
What's it
It's
called for
called how
anybody?
how leaders think. So instead of learning from all the gurus what to do, we learn how leaders think, so you can apply that to your own life and situation.
That's awesome. Great.
Wherever fine podcasts are sold.
Excellent. All right. Well, if today's interview added value to you, please subscribe to this channel for future interviews with experts in the world of business.